The Pain Pod's presented by Tremo Pharmaceuticals and is intended for educational and informational purposes only. Please speak to medical professionals before making any treatment decisions and visit TremoRx.com to learn more about their work.
There's no such thing as real or unreal pain.
Pain doesn't know gender or culture or anything, right? It afflicts us all.
Because it affects so many people in often profound ways.
You know, you do a lot of thinking when you're in pain. I think it gives you a certain perspective on life.
Definitely did not want to accept it, and I also didn't believe that that was really the plan for my life.
I always get through it though, always.
Hi, this is host Patrick James Lynch. Welcome back to the Pain Pod. I once heard someone say, if you've heard one story of chronic pain, you've heard one story of chronic pain. No two pain journeys are identical. There's no one-size-fits-all conclusion to draw. But there are lessons to be learned from the stories that are told, and Ryan Macy's is one that's particularly emblematic of so many people living with pain and mystery and frustration and misdiagnosis and disbelief for so long until there's one last piece of the treatment puzzle that's introduced, and suddenly a breakthrough is made.
"15 years ago, I was in a rollover car accident where the roof of the car came down on my head. I had a severe head injury and a neck fracture. The doctors had to sedate me, and they didn't know if I was going to survive. They definitely thought it was likely that I could be paralyzed. But I had healed extremely quickly. I was really young at the time. The doctors were pretty amazed. And I was symptom-free, and I was out of the hospital within a week. Went back to normal life. I was in high school at the time, but 6 months later, I started having neck pain, and chronic pain developed. The pain didn't go away. I had all the tests done that the doctors knew to do. Went to physical therapy, chiropractor, tried acupuncture. I tried everything, but my body the test, everything looked normal, but the doctors just said that, because of the injury, I most likely would be in pain for the rest of my life. "4 years after that, actually, I went into college, and I had 2 grand mal seizures. And again, doctors said, this must be from the accident. This must be because of the head injury. They ran all the tests, tried to see if they could come up with an explanation, but they couldn't. And then that was kind of the start of a spiral of medical issues that became a syndrome on their own. And it was debilitating. I also had started having chronic back pain. I had 5 surgeries in 5 years. Again, every scan, MRI was done. I went to every doctor I could, but I was just told that I would be in pain for the rest of my life. At 17 years old, at 21, so that was pretty devastating.
There is an underlying psychological pathology to those who develop chronic pain. That is to say, there are common personality traits that habituate individuals to responding to negative stimuli in a way that increases cognitive focus and amplifies the experience of pain.
Chronic pain psychotherapist Dr. Daniel Lyman.
That's just all a really fancy way of saying that type A people who tend to be ambitious and highly structured, tend to get chronic pain more than those who are not type A. It can be difficult for many people to accept that there is a psychological component to chronic pain, but the brain and the body cannot be detached from each other. Pain has an effect on our brain, and our brain has an effect on our experience of pain.
At the time, I had no idea that I was a high-stress person or that I had anxiety, but I was extremely involved in school and extracurricular activities, so I was super busy. I As soon as I was, again, recovered from the car accident initially, I just jumped right back into normal life. So very busy. Learned later also, definitely had a lot of perfectionistic tendencies to my personality, as well as people-pleasing. All of those things were a huge part of my journey with chronic pain as well.
Dr. John Sarno, an internist at NYU, popularized the idea that there are common personality traits amongst those that develop chronic pain, and that emotional expression can decrease and eliminate pain. He called this diagnosis tension myoneural syndrome, which just means tension in the body caused by the brain. He posited that when an individual allows themselves to be more emotionally expressive, they reduce the brain's anxious response to negative stimuli, and therefore decrease tension and decrease pain. His hypothesis and the subsequent books that he wrote started a cultural movement of understanding pain more holistically and eventually got me involved in what I do.
Pain psychologist Dr. Jennifer Huggins shares similar sentiments.
Surprisingly, chronic pain caused by stress is much more common than believed. This type of pain was first introduced by Dr. John Sarno, MD. More recently has been referred to as mind-body syndrome, or MBS, and psychophysiological disorder, or PPD. He basically saw that so many patients were struggling with pain that didn't really correlate with what was going on with physical findings.
Insurance had suggested I go to a pain management program for several years, but I always resisted it because I didn't want to accept what the doctors had told me, that I would be in pain for the rest of my life. What finally got me to go to pain management was I ended up on disability at 24 years old because I couldn't hold down a job. The issues just spiraled too much, and I couldn't. I had to take a break and really devote my time and energy to seeing if there was anything else that I could do to find healing. So that's when I went to this pain management class that Dr. Huggins was teaching. And I remember on the first day, she told our class that she didn't believe we had to be in pain for the rest of our lives. She believed that we could find healing from our pain. And she encouraged us to throw away any diagnosis that doctors had given us. So this was the first time in 9 years that anyone told me that the pain could go away.
There are people who come see me and they're ambivalent. They're ambivalent. They know about TMS. Maybe they've found me online. They know what I'm about, but they're not quite sure. I guess it's more common than not for people to be there than for them to come in and just be like, I know this is what's going on for sure. But more than not, they're open to it if they're coming to see me.
I was so desperate and looking for answers and open to anything. What Dr. Huggins taught and Dr. Sarno's book and his method really resonated with me. And in reading Dr. Sarno's book, The Mind-Body Prescription, I could see myself in that book, and I could relate and see the evidence that this is actually what was happening in my life.
The Pain Pod is produced by BloodStream Media and made possible thanks to our sponsor, Tremo Pharmaceuticals. Tremo was founded with the goal of developing and delivering non-opioid pain therapies for people with rare diseases and other select patient conditions. Tremo is currently investigating 2 COX-2 selective NSAIDs. As you've heard me say before, NSAID, for those who aren't familiar, stands for non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs. While neither of these treatments are FDA approved, they are in clinical trials, and you can learn more about those trials, Tremo's mission, and the dedicated team leading it by going to TremoRx.com. That's TremeAurx.com. Tremo, leading the way for those left behind in pain.
What Dr. Huggins talked about in pain management was that there's a scientific term called neuroplasticity, which means that our brains have the capability of being rewired. And there's actually things that we can do to help rewire our brains. So what a pain pathway is once we have an injury, the brain is what sends a signal to tell our bodies that we're in pain. So once that signal's been sent, that's now a neural pathway that is created. And every time that pain signal is sent, it gets stronger and stronger. The first thing for me in my rehabilitation was understanding that pain starts in the nervous system. And so the nervous system was really where the area that I needed to focus on, because when our brains are in a constant state of fight or flight, that a response that's we know as survival mode. Our blood's pumping, our muscles are tight, we're ready to go into like battle if we need to for an emergency. But with chronic pain, when our brain is constantly in this state of fight or flight, it keeps those pain pathways alive. So I had to learn, first of all, tools that would help me to lower this, to lessen the hyperactivity of my nervous system. And mindfulness was something that was played a huge role in that for me. One concept with mindfulness that's really helpful is the idea of watching a train go by with lots of train cars and just watching them pass. The same thing as watching clouds go by. Like that's what the idea of mindfulness really suggests. Again, being someone that was extremely active, extremely busy, this was the first time in my life that I really learned what it meant to pause and be still. It opened up awareness, which was so important to the healing that I found. It was a journey, really, of about 5 years for me. There was a lot that went into really establishing this understanding, and that's the thing with TMS is you have to believe it with your entire being that is what your body's going through, because TMS is a defense mechanism that our brain uses to basically it's like our egos trying to cover up like emotions. So basically the brain thinks that it's easier for us to have physical pain than to feel the emotional pain. And the understanding of pain is the treatment. So a huge thing that helped me was understanding that our reaction to pain also plays a huge role in recovery, because regardless of the cause of the pain, there's a concept that Dr. Huggins talked about with clean pain versus dirty pain. And clean pain is whatever it is, that injury, the onset of the pain. And then dirty pain is everything that's around the pain, all of our feelings and emotions about the pain. Again, it's natural and normal to be angry about pain, to be annoyed with it, to want it to go away. But the problem is when we're in that, when we have those reactions and stay there, that's where these pain pathways continue to get ingrained more and more deeply. Learning to really accept and understand the pain. It's a paradox, because we're doing all of this work to find healing, but actually the goal is to not care about the pain, to allow the pain to lose its power so that it doesn't need to be there anymore. So starting to have a shift of understanding that when pain comes on, like, is there possibly an emotional reason that this pain is here, not just a physical reason? When you're in chronic pain, like you're in so much pain. So to be told like, test it out, try to do things that you couldn't do before. Like you've been told by everybody, there's been so much fear around pain. Like you've been told that you can't do anything. So one understanding that was really helpful was a concept of hurt versus harm. So to be able to test this theory, I had to understand that just because something hurts doesn't mean it's going to harm me. So I would push the limits. I would take baby steps, but I would allow myself to do things that when pain was there, because I knew that it wasn't causing harm to my body, it hurt because there was that pain pathway. And the more that I would do things, the more those symptoms would go away. And unfortunately, Western medicine is great for so many things, but really doesn't understand chronic pain and the syndrome that is on its own. We live in like a fast-paced, quick-fix society, so we want a pill, we want a remedy that's fast, and we want to keep going. But in my experience, that is not what actually helps chronic pain. There's things that are out there. A lot of times they're placebos, really, things that people, think are going to help them. But what many times happen is our belief that something will help us, that lowers that threat that our brain sees, so it does help that symptom. But then our brain still has to place all these unresolved issues that we have, so it's going to jump to another physical symptom. So I've experienced that during my recovery. It was just like, it was crazy, the experiences that I would write down about how it would shift from neck pain to back pain to tingling and numbness in my foot, in my face.
But is emotional pain that stems from the mind, psychosomatic pain, is it real pain?
It's a good question. And there's no such thing as real or unreal pain. Technically, all pain is in our heads, which I know sounds kind of crazy, but that's where pain comes from. So if we took your brain out of your body, you wouldn't feel pain if something broke in your body. That's not the way it works. If you cut your arm, a message gets sent from your arm to your brain that says, oh, something bad happened here. Give him pain so that he won't keep cutting himself or won't keep hurting himself. We never ever say that there's no such thing as unreal pain. If somebody's in pain, they're experiencing it. People tend to think that there's a lot of what we call secondary gain, meaning people are saying, I'm in pain as a way of like getting attention or what have you, but that's actually very rare. Most of I would say 95% of the time when someone's in pain, they're really in pain. And we're evolutionarily wired to think that pain is coming from some sort of physical cause, even though that's not always the case. So often our brain can get those signals crossed, and pain can be triggered from misfiring neural pathways in your brain.
The pain is completely real. They're real symptoms. It's just understanding that the mind is sending these pain signals, and we can actually change that.
To further complexify things, not only is pain caused by emotions like stress or anxiety, but pain also causes emotions like stress or anxiety or depression. Hematologist and pain researcher Dr. Tyler Buckner.
My patients with pain, we screen them for anxiety and depression. We talk about it, we ask about it, and then we try to make sure that we address those needs as well, because I was taught long ago that if somebody has chronic pain and depression, neither one is going to get better unless you treat them both.
Inactivity. That's what I hate about pain, is that I'm not able to do what I want to do.
This is Val Bias, a New Jersey executive who has lived with chronic pain for decades.
Not being able to get up and go out and interact with people in the way I would like to. Pain has a impact on, your ability to interact with people. You may not laugh as much. You can get through it, but you may not be as happy as you would like to be. And I'm pretty outgoing for the most part. And I don't think people know when I'm in pain, but I know when I'm in pain.
I think most people didn't really know the way it was affecting my relationships with them because one of the things that's so challenging about chronic pain is that it's invisible. So nobody knew what I was going through except for like the closest family and friends, but even they really didn't understand. So just that alone was really isolating. And because of that, it definitely, affected my relationships. I also, when I was in extreme pain, I, avoided certain situations, certain social scenarios just because it was too hard. It was really hard to even explain to my friends, also being, teenagers or really young adults, what was going on. In my life and with the pain. I would say that I am completely cured from chronic pain. Now, does pain still sometimes come on? Yes, because what I've learned is that is the human condition, this the connection between our mind and our body. So what happens to us in our lives affects us not only emotionally but physically. When pain comes on now, I know right away what it is and I call it what it is. I say that's a mind-body symptom, and sometimes it goes away instantly. Most of the time it goes away within the hour, or sometimes it might be a day or something like that. But it's pretty incredible. And again, there was a lot of understanding that I had to get to really see how these symptoms could just turn on and off like that. One thing that was extremely helpful to me was, and this is what Dr. Sarno suggests in your recovery, is creating a TMS evidence journal. So I became a detective for pain, and I would write down evidence anytime that something physical didn't cause pain, or anytime that I could link that there was emotion that was causing the pain instead. And I just would continue to make this journal to really understand and see this is not caused by these physical issues, but there's emotional issues that are fueling this pain instead.
It's not always the story, but fortunately for Ryan, his journey with chronic pain came to an end.
My life has changed drastically since I've been cured. Again, when I was in severe chronic pain, I couldn't lift anything. I couldn't use a backpack. I remember having a conversation with my wife about how we didn't know if we would ever have kids because my medical issues were so extreme and all-consuming. We couldn't imagine being able to take care of somebody else. Now, fast forward to the present, I have 2 kids. I can carry them both when they want me to. I wear a backpack. Not only that, I've used backpack on all-day hikes up mountains, carrying everything that I need for the day. I have done extreme trail running, equivalent to half marathons. I'm currently, and for several years, have been in a high-intensity boot camp gym where I do heavy weightlifting. I have no fear at all in regards to pain because I understand it. If there's an acute injury, that's one thing, and I know that even with that injury, my reaction to the pain is going to help lessen the pain. The fear of the pain just keeps us in this cycle that I've just learned is so damaging, that I'm so disconnected from being fearful of pain. I'm Ryan Massey, and I have found healing from 15 years of chronic pain.
TMS changed Ryan's life. He says so himself, and it is clear in his story, as well as in his grasp of the subject that he himself is now an expert practitioner in. So is that it? Is Dr. John Sarno's tension myoneural syndrome the missing puzzle piece? The long misunderstood component to more effective pain management?
Cure? I don't think so. Do I think it's a modality that helps treat the symptom, just like insulin helps diabetics, but it's not specifically helping or curing their diabetes? And so I do think it's a modality that helps treat the pain. I think it specifically cures pain.
You'll hear much more on episode 3 of The Pain Pod. The Pain Pod is written and directed by me, Patrick James Lynch, produced and edited by Greg Holdsman, artwork by Ryan Gielen and Christina Newhart, post-production support from Joshua Sterling Bragg, Rob Bradford, and Avra Friedman. The Pain Pod is produced by BloodStream Media and presented by Tremo Pharmaceuticals. Learn more about Tremo and the work they're doing to help alleviate pain by visiting tremeaurx.com. Subscribe, rate, and share The Pain Pod. Referrals from you are the best way we can reach new people. Thanks for listening. My name's Patrick James Lynch, and we'll be back next week with episode 3 of The Pain Pod.